Okay, welcome, Javonne, to the Be the One podcast. We're glad you're here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and we're coming off of Halloween and homecoming, and we've had a busy week.
Yes.
So today, nobody's in costume on campus.
No, for the first time in like 7 days.
I know. So you are a lower and intermediate school, head of school for those divisions. And so you've got a lot of kids under you.
Yes. Almost half the school, I think.
Almost half the
when
school.
You think about it.
That's so true. That's so true.
I think altogether, maybe about 330 students might be under me.
Oh, wow.
That's a good thing.
That is a good thing. That is a good thing.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about who you are and how you came here to be at Brookstone and your family and all those good things so we can get to know you.
Absolutely. So I'm the head of the lower and intermediate school. In 2019, I went on kind of a soft job hunt. To find, to really expand my skill set. Like I had kind of outgrown the school that I was at, and I wanted to explore some leadership. I had been in leadership before, so this is interesting. So I left the classroom at one point in Atlanta Public Schools. I taught there for 14 years, and I went into leadership, and then rather worked with kids. So I went back to teaching, and that's how I ended up in private school in Atlanta. Okay. That's when I switched from public to private school. And so when I was in private school, I stayed there for 7 years at Trinity School in Atlanta, and I decided I wanted to kind of branch out. But I loved Trinity, so I didn't know for sure, so that's why it was kind of a soft job hunt.
Right.
I got a phone call from Cindy Tote, and she wanted to interview me, and it came out of the blue because usually I knew the ones that were coming, but someone had sent my information to Brookstone, and it kind of came out of the blue. And so I interviewed on the phone with her and decided to head on down to Columbus, which I had no clue where it was. Just letting y'all know. Like, I grew up in New York, and in New York, there's New York and California, nothing in between. And I just found myself in Georgia because of my husband, who was then my boyfriend. And so I didn't know where Columbus, Georgia was. And it's actually crazy. So 2 days before I was supposed to come, I went to my head of school, Joe Marshall, who to this day is a great mentor for me. And I said, listen, I don't think I want to go. I said, I don't know if I should. I said, I don't know where it is. I don't think I want to go. And he said, you should go, if not just for the practice. There you go. And so I went, and I came down here, and I realized that Columbus had more than one exit. And I was like, whoa, okay, it's a bigger city than I thought. And I came to Brookstone's campus and immediately saw it and was like, oh my God, this is a beautiful, absolutely beautiful, breathtaking school. It really is. And then I got toured by two students who were really impressive, and I thought, I want my kids to be these kids, So it was really, it was Jimmy Hunter and Charlotte.
Oh my goodness, Charlotte Adams. That's
and
so
are they
fun.
seniors?
Yeah,
now?
no, they're sophomores.
Sophomores. Okay, so they toured me from the intermediate school.
Oh my gosh, that's so fun.
Yeah, I remember them so vividly, just really kind of poised and told me all about the school. It was awesome. A marathon of interviews. Yes. It was like 8 of them in a day. And when I left, I thought I could do this. And so I called my husband. I said, would you really be willing to move from Atlanta? He's kind of a diehard Atlantan. And he said, if it's what you want to do, you should do it. And that's how I moved my whole family.
Yes, you did.
3 kids, a husband and a dog down to Columbus, Georgia. And so that's how we got here. So it's been great ever since.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah. So your first year was kind of COVID, wasn't it?
So I'm the COVID principal.
Yeah.
Yes. So my first year, that's what I call myself, my first year as a principal. My first year, my administrative role before was more instructional coaching.
Right.
And so it was my first year ever being a principal of a school, and COVID hits. And so talking about a learning curve, I got thrown in the fire with great mentor, great leadership team around me. I wouldn't have been able to do it without them. And I learned a lot of lessons the hard way. And so I'm still here. So it didn't run me out, but it definitely was a different, that's not what I thought I was coming to do. So instead of considering myself an instructional leader, that kind of went to the wayside, right? And so we had to make sure kids were safe and healthy and still learning, but the focus was more to keep them safe while learning. So that is something that I really learned a whole lot about.
Yeah, for sure.
In a very short amount of time.
I know. Bless your heart.
So there were so many lessons in that.
I know.
God puts you in places for a reason. And my mom always says, some people hate that statement. It doesn't give you anything you can't handle. But, there were some tough moments, but I got through that. And it just showed me that. I started thinking about all the things that I did that were like, things that I would never done. And that was one I would have never willingly walked into that. But sometimes you got to be pushed a little to see where your leadership can go and your full potential. And so I'm really proud of coming out of that on the other side and being in Columbus, because I think it would have been very different if I were in Atlanta.
Oh, I think so too. Yeah, so. Just based on talking to friends and family who live in Atlanta, like we had a totally different experience.
And really being like a working mom. And if I were in Atlanta, my kids wouldn't have been in school. And I just can't imagine how different it would have been. And so I'm grateful that we moved when we moved and that we were in Columbus in 2019, 2020. Yep, definitely.
For sure. Well, I am too. Yeah. And I'm grateful we responded as a school the way we did.
Yes.
Woo, I mean, like you said,
you look back on it, you're like,
don't want to do it again.
Boy, I know. We did some things.
I know.
We had plexiglass galore. Trying to figure out what to do with all of that when we had to take it down. I was like, do we recycle it?
What do we do?
Do we
use
it for art projects? Like, what do we do? But yes, it was all necessary in the moment.
That's right.
Happy to see it gone.
Right. Yes, exactly. I mean, we've lived through history.
Yes.
So the stories we will tell
one day.
For the
pictures I can laugh at and the ones I can't.
I know.
And I'm happy we got, on the other side of it, definitely.
I know. I saw a picture yesterday, actually, and I can't remember where it was, going through all the Brookstone Facebook stuff. And it was a picture of senior night at swim that year, and they're in the masks. Yeah. And I'm like, but you can't swim in
with
a
the mask.
I mean, like, it just was such a weird thing to look at just think, wow, that wasn't that long
I have
ago.
This picture of my kids at my house. We went to Florida. Everyone's trying to figure out what's the vacation you can go to where you don't have to be around a lot of people. Right. So we rented this house and went to Florida, and then went to this outdoor alligator farm. And my kids are holding an alligator with a mask on their face. I keep it because it just reminds me of where we came from.
Right, I know.
And it makes me chuckle, but when you think about it, you're like, goodness gracious, we never would have thought we would be walking around in full facial mask.
In a million years. I know. So good times.
Good times. Yeah. Or not. No, I'm just joking.
For real. Times we look back on and ponder and reflect on.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so tell me a little bit, shifting from that to kind of the story of your career. I know you came from Atlanta, but like, how did you end up in education? And did you always know you wanted to be a teacher?
So not really. So I went, I'm first generation college student. So I went to college. Awesome. I went to Rye Country Day School in Rye, New York, on a full ride. Wow. Somebody at my school recommended me. I went. My mom, we took the train to Rye Country Day School, and I tested, and I got into this this elite private school, and we did not know what we were doing, but I went. And it was probably one of the best decisions my mother ever made. I mean, I was just exposed to so many things that I probably wouldn't have been exposed to. And so I ended up going to college because that's what everybody did at Rye Country. You just did not go to college. Right. So I went to college. I went to University of Maryland, College Park. I'm a go Terrapins undergrad, and which was funny because I got into all these other schools, and I picked a state school, and I remember our counselor, Miss Reinhardt, saying, why would you pick Maryland out of all this whole group? But when I went there, this just shows you exposure is important. When I went there to visit, it looked like a college. It looked like what college looked like on TV.
Right.
So when I went to George Washington, that didn't, because it's in the heart of D.C. and it's just brick buildings. Yes. But I went to Maryland, I was like, white pillars and, the grass, beautiful. Everything. And that's why I was like, I'm going to this place because this is what college looks like.
Oh, that's
anyway,
so true.
Yeah. And so when I went there, I went as a journalism major.
Really?
And so I was taken for a year and a half. I took journalism classes, and I had to have a minor in a language. So I minored in Spanish. And I was taking all of these history courses that I just loved. And I switched to history.
There you go.
And that's how I ended up leaving there with a history degree. And in the middle of that, I thought I could teach somebody, but I just didn't. I had 4 years. My mom worked really hard. She said, listen, you have 4 years and 4 years to get out of this school. Maryland was one of those schools at the time where people took 6 years to get out of.
Right.
And so I knew that we were on money-wise, we were on a crunch. And so I stuck with the major that I could get out in 4 years. And then I had an advisor, Dr. Sharon Harley, and she was a professor in African American history. She's like just really smart, like one of the smartest people I know. And she's like, you should get a PhD. And I said, really? She goes, yeah, you should. So I went on to Ohio State to get a PhD and hated it. Like the whole process of it was just so... I don't know, isolating, I should say, because, you know, when people are working on PhDs, they're just always doing research. And I was kind of this person who wanted to be out in the community and do all these things. And so I was walking across campus one day, just upset. I remember calling my mom and she said, girl, I just wanted you to get an undergrad degree. I don't know why you went and did all this. Just come home if it's that bad. I'm in Columbus, Ohio. It's freezing cold. She's like, just come home. And so I see this sign for Teach for America. And I had been doing some volunteer work. Part of my program was a community outreach part. So I've been going to this community center in downtown Columbus, Ohio, and volunteering with these kids at this school. And that was the highlight. It was really the highlight of being in Columbus, Ohio, is that I went to this school twice a week, and I just loved those kids. It was in a high poverty area, but they were street smart in a way that challenged me, but, you know, also, you know, really loving and just needed somebody to look up to. So I did Teach for America because it was kind of that same demographic. We'll put you in this community where they need good teachers. And that's how I got on the teaching track. I started teaching at 26, so it wasn't the traditional, you know, right out of college. And I didn't go through a traditional education program. I went through Teach for America's training program. I did my training in Houston, Texas, in third grade, a third grade bilingual class. I got placed in Atlanta. And I taught 6th and 7th grade social studies and reading at Inman Middle School in Atlanta for years. And then the rest is history. I just stayed. Most Teach for America people leave after 2 or 3 years. A good percentage of them stay in education in some capacity, either policy or, you know, they're working as lawyers as advocates for children or something like that. But I actually stayed in education. So that's how I got into teaching.
And now you're here.
And I'm here. And I got, you know, on the way, I got certified, you know, the proper certifications because you get temporary for Teach for America. And I went back and got a master's in education from Columbia Teachers College.
That's awesome.
And that solidified me being in education. For life.
Yes, for life.
For life.
To impact all those lives underneath
always a teacher.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, that's exciting.
That's how I got here.
Story.
Yeah.
Well, and we are so glad you're here. It's been awesome having you here.
Thank you.
So probably not an answer to this in the sense that you don't have a typical day, but now that you are here, what is a typical day? What does a typical day look like?
I'm glad you understand I don't have a typical day.
I know. It's kind of one of those questions I throw out already knowing the answer. There is no typical day.
My ideal typical day, I would say, would be for me to do carpool. I actually, carpool is the highlight of my day, morning carpool, because you get to, our kids jump out of the car happy. So, and I mean, and that brings joy because you know they're joyful about coming to school. That's really what you want every student to be like. You want them to be excited about coming to school. So I do carpool, and then what I would love to do every morning, which I do most mornings this year, I set some goals this year, is to move to every class. So I go in, greet students, say hi, or just kind of observe in classrooms. Ask teachers if they need help. Sit down with kids sometimes and help them with something. And I do that. I call it my rounds, like I'm in medical school or something. But I do my rounds and I go from classroom to classroom. I've made some goals this year to actually sub instead of teachers getting outside subs. If they tell me ahead of time, I can sub. And I've done that quite a bit this year. And that keeps me grounded, you know, in terms of the teacher perspective. I hope to never lose my connection to teaching as a leader because it's important to understand the teacher perspective as much as the student perspective.
Totally agree.
And so I do recess and lunch duty. And all of these things seem so simple, but it helps me know each and every kid's name. It helps me know each and every kid's behaviors, who their friends are, why they do what they do, if they're having a bad day and why that might be happening. And so I try to be in classrooms as much as possible. Now, in other typical days, I'm in meetings, and those are important too because, you know, the meetings help us all stay connected, all the administrators stay connected so that we have, a whole child feel at Brookstone. It's
Right.
not just about lower school being divided from intermediate school and middle school, so that we
Right.
are all collectively working on behalf of children.
Yeah.
And then I have grade level meetings with teachers where we talk about curriculum, we talk about how to challenge high level students, how to support students who are struggling. I guide them on, curriculum decisions, and I want to say, guide me. Sometimes we work together to know what's best for the students. So it's a lot of collaboration and meeting. Those meetings are really important so that we know that our curriculum helps support our students, and our students are leaving with all of the skills that they need to, to make it in our world.
Yeah,
And so
for sure.
that's the typical day.
That's the typical day.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think, having been at so many other schools, what is different about Brookstone? What kind of is unique?
That's a great question. I think what's unique is the family feel. Now, people will say that over and over again, but there truly is like a community of people looking out for each other. And in other schools, you find that in small pockets. Like it's like maybe one grade level operates really well together, but another one doesn't. But here, through the good or the bad, people will ultimately rise to help you. I've seen that over and over again, where even if, families fight sometimes. So even if we don't really get along, that ultimately if a crisis or a tragedy happens, we come together collectively. And I think that's unique to Brookstone. It really is unique to Brookstone.
That's awesome.
I love that about Brookstone.
Yeah. Me too. And I love how you say that. Yeah, families can argue, families can disagree, but ultimately we really are family, and we're all in to support each other, to love each other and lift each other up.
It's like Voltron. You know Voltron? Do you remember Voltron?
Yes.
You know Voltron?
Yes. Remind me what that is.
Am I dating myself?
No. I'm like, who's Voltron?
So back in the cartoon, Saturday morning cartoon days, there was He-Man and She-Ra.
One of the
Gem Girls.
Yes.
There was Voltron in Transformers.
What's the name? Was it in Transformers?
So Voltron was like Transformers, and they broke apart. The two arms were one car, the two legs were one, and then the middle. And then they'd say, Voltron, activate, and they'd come together.
Yes.
And so that's how I see
that.
Brookstone.
There
might be different. Now go Google Voltron. You need to understand. So we have different groups of people doing different things and have different purposes. But when we need to come together, we activate and we come together. So
I love that.
We're Voltron.
I love that analogy. That's a really good one, actually. So everybody's going to be Googling
Everybody
Voltron
has to
now.
Google. It's one of those cartoons that has not come back. Like Transformers has.
Right.
He-Man hasn't come back.
I don't think he has.
Okay.
And it's different than the Super Friends.
It's different than the Super
Friends.
Yes.
But it was kind of the same type of...
It's that same era.
Yes,
that
animation.
Time
Yes.
Yeah. Just saying I'm dating myself.
No, I'm right there with you. I'm right.
The 80s sometimes, Just saying.
Okay, all right. Well, shifting from Voltron to values.
Okay.
We have 7 core values here at Brookstone, and I'm reading them because I don't want to leave them out. We have loyalty. These are all part of our mission statement: courage, wisdom, honor, service, respect, and leadership. So what do these mean to you, and why is it important that we're teaching these to our kids?
Okay. We have a lot of them.
We have a lot. There's 7.
Yeah. And I'm going to start with leadership because I feel like all of those go into leadership. Like in order to grow, I had a whole theme of growing leaders and growing greatness. In order to grow greatness and grow leaders, they have to have courage, honor, respect. They have to have all of those values. And so
I love that.
I can't separate one from the other because I feel like it's important for our kids to have all of them. Even if that were not on our mission statement, it's still important for kids to leave your school with honor and courage and respect. Right. Ultimately, without one, it doesn't work. That's how I kind of see it. Like if one is missing, you're missing something. And so if we give kids the courage to be a leader, that takes a skill set. We have to constantly be telling them it's okay to take a risk, right? It's okay to be brave. It's okay to step forward. And we do that here. We put our littlest learners on a stage and they perform in front of people, even when they tear up a little bit after they feel accomplished because they know that they at least can do it once a year, right? And then there's some other kids who volunteer all the time, right. to do it, whose hand is up every day, right?
Exactly.
And then when I think about respect, I think about relationship building and how I think a lot of times when we think about respect, we always want people to think the same way and do the same thing, but that's not what respect is. Respect is really honoring each other for who we are.
Right.
Maybe not always agreeing, but understanding that we can agree to disagree, but in a cordial way. So that's respect as well. Right. And then loyalty is a tricky one because it just depends on what you're loyal to, right? And so I think we teach our students to be loyal to being great leaders.
Right.
We have the servant leadership, which I can't, I think that's also what's unique about Brookstone is our emphasis on servant leadership. Lots of schools have service programs and organizations and requirements for hours, but our students are going into the local community right down the street and making a difference in someone's life. Right. And I think that has to do with all of those. I think our servant leadership program is teaching courage and teaching respect and teaching loyalty to your community and pulling somebody up when you can. So I think it's the foundation of who we are. Like our kids are leaving and doing great things. I just went to the Distinguished Alumni Dinner, and I'm always amazed at what they're doing and how they can pinpoint what helped them do it. Right. Like your sister-in-law talked about basketball, and I just told Coach Ellison, Kim, I said, you should have heard her talk about, how basketball really helped her to know how to be a great winner and a great loser and like how to come back and do something different. And so I think there are all these moments of learning which focus on those values. I think that's why they're so important. So I don't really have a favorite. Right. If I think of my own kids that I raise in my house, I want them to have all of those. Same. And different situations will allow for different ones to come out at that moment. And so that's how I see it.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. Yeah. And I love that that we're even looking for new ways to expand upon instilling these in our students because I think now more than ever we need to know who we are and the impact we can have on others and knowing and having these values as our foundation is just so important.
And then when you bring leaders back, or not even bring them back, but if you ever you have your favorite leader or your favorite person you follow, at some point they're going to talk about one of these, and how it impacted them, or when they used it, or why it's important. I think we have a good list of them.
Yeah,
I think
so
they're
too.
all important.
I think so too.
Yeah,
and it's kind of fun to think, the kids that are 8, 9, and 10 years old now here on this campus. I mean, they will go off. And just to imagine what they're going to do and then come back. I mean, we really are raising the next generation of leaders. It is not a small task.
It's not.
And
oh no, it's not.
It is not.
It's not a small task.
So, we're just so grateful for our teachers and for our admin who are so intentional about this because it is the next generation. Yeah.
And it doesn't, parenting is hard.
Right. Yes.
And so it doesn't, every kid you have is different. I have 3 who are very different. And it's not always on the front of your radar to just be teaching like loyalty.
Right, exactly.
Like today I'm going to teach loyalty. Like what quote can I give you?
Right.
So it's helpful as a parent to have a school that's also reinforcing it for you, and so that you know what's going on, and then you can reinforce it at home.
So true.
It definitely takes a village.
So true.
Yeah.
So true. I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah.
All right. So speaking of our students who are here on campus now, all of us are guilty of just taking for granted everything that we get to experience throughout a day. So if there's anything you could say to our students, high school, lower school, intermediate school, anytime, y'all be aware. We want you to experience this and not miss it and enjoy. What would you say to them? Like, don't miss this.
So in the intermediate school, and more specifically because I get to talk to them in front of them on a daily basis, I always encourage them to try to speak in front of an audience,
Ooh, that's
even when you're super nervous. So I will take kids aside and say, hey, I will stand with you. Like, I'll stand up there with you. Because I think once someone's nervous to do that, they just won't try it just because they're nervous. But once they realize they can do it, they'll try it again. And so I would encourage all lower and intermediate school students at some point in the year, try to speak in front of somebody. Or if you tend to not raise your hand, just raise it and make your statement, say your point, because it gets you closer to being less nervous about doing that. And although being in the front and speaking all the time is not the primary leadership skill, there's lots of background leaders. One civil rights movement person called it bridge leaders, the ones in the background who are making everything happen. You have those. They're just as important as the upfront leaders, right? But there is some value in being able to advocate for yourself and be able to speak on your own behalf. So I would love for them to do that.
That's so true.
And then for the middle school and upper school students, I would say that a unique experience here is the Blanchard Leadership Institute. And we present in front of them. They're a tough crowd.
Right. Yes.
They're a tough crowd. But I do want them to realize that there is value in goal setting.
Right.
And there's value in incremental change.
Yes.
And that when they get the opportunity to do their sprint, that they should take it seriously, because they will find, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow or next month, that being able to pinpoint like a slight change in behavior can go a long way. And to be able to do that eventually will have lots of value. That you're getting something that lots of other kids are not getting in high school. They're only learning that in their senior year in college, you know? So I think that's a tool that we're developing, and we should continue to develop, because they're leaving with something great. And, sometimes hindsight, like one of my biggest regrets is my grandmother was a seamstress, and I never really learned how to work a sewing machine. It's like one of those things when you're like 30, you're like, I should have kind of listened. Or, I know how to do this because I went through all those sprints, in high school. And so I would tell them to take the opportunity to really dig deep with that and learn about themselves in a different way.
I love that.
Yeah.
I found myself when we were working with the seniors recently in their sprint, realizing this is their last sprint. Like, they won't have another one this year. And trying to impress upon that to them, this is it. Like, lean in, because when y'all leave here, take these tools. It will just be such a benefit to you to be able,
because then you're going to be on the rat race of getting through college classes. And you're not stopping for a moment to say, hey, how can I change my behavior? Or what's the assumption, that a big assumption that I have? You're just trying to get through. And it's hard to sit back and reflect when you're trying to get through. So
totally agree.
It'll give them, and maybe they won't do that now. Maybe they will do reflection, because we've kind of set them up for that.
That's our hope, for sure. Okay, so one other thing that our listeners may not know about you that I think is awesome that you have brought to Brookstone is I'm shifting, going from high school back down to lower school, is Forest Fridays. I mean, that was really kind of your brainchild. Like, so tell us more about like what made you want to grow that, and so just the history there.
So I'll go a little bit back. So Leanne Floyd, when I got here, she was, this campus is on lots of acres of land. It's a beautiful campus. And she had already been trying to toy around with like, how do we get the kids outside? So she's kind of part of this. And then right before she left, it kind of like a schedule change. It was like she helped create a schedule change where we can have Forest Fridays. Like it can all be on Fridays. And honestly, it wasn't that developed. Like, we're like, let's get these kids outside. What I came here with was an idea to grow an outdoor education program. Because one of the things that made Trinity School unique is that they had this really well-developed, like each grade level went on some type of outdoor trip. And this is an elementary school. And in 5th and 6th grade, they went on an overnight trip, camping.
Like a camp out.
Yes, it was my big foray into sleeping in a tent with kids. Anyway, but I ended up loving it because you learn so much about kids when they're not in a traditional classroom. Right. Like different skill sets come out. Like you realize that this student is really hands-on, right? And they're out in the woods and they're having a great time. And for all of a sudden they're a leader where they weren't in the classroom.
Right. How about that?
And so that's where it came from. And so the elective teachers really worked really, really hard. I got to give them immense credit on making that program like work and making the kids love it and adding song and art and, music to it in a way that make children love it. And so
they do
now it's grown because parents are now realizing the value of their kids being outside and not, on that Friday. So we have lots of parent volunteers coming in and asking, bringing animals and snakes against my will, but that happened and they asked for forgiveness later. And then, and now we currently have Mr. Jackson, who's been coming in and doing kind of like survival skills in the woods. And we have the bat lady coming in, bringing bats for the kids to touch. So it's been like a great, unique outdoor ed experience that's unlike what's happening in the classroom.
Right.
And I hope that it sticks forever.
Oh, I do too.
Because kids look forward to it.
They do.
I try to go out with them when I can. I can't always go. We're using our campus in a way that it hadn't been used before. So they're hiking in the woods. Yeah. They're going up to the chapel and they're doing activities up there and art activities, and they're doing it more than they've ever done before. Right. And it's making us pay attention to that area, right? Now we're fixing it up, making sure it's ready for them. And people are running through it. We encourage people to go up there. And so I think it's an asset to our campus and it's an asset to our students. And hopefully, my hope is that it grows into something that, the intermediate school, we're trying to figure out how they can get more involved, maybe middle school, and that we're constantly using the acres that we're on as a learning experience, because there's so much to learn from being outside.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, I think it is one of the greatest things that we have implemented here. Yeah. And the kids love it. Yeah. They love it. They look forward to it. They will remember it for years,
Yeah. And the teachers loved it. This year we've been really intentional about the curriculum, actually writing down everything we do, making it developmentally appropriate, having specific activities for each grade level.
Because right now it's K through third grade, right?
K through third grade. Okay. And then in the springtime, they're able to do some things with fourth and fifth grade, specifically with fourth graders, because the fifth graders we go to Twin Lakes now as our outdoor ed experience. We've gone for 2 years now. Yeah, we had to cancel COVID. 2 years now, and they get to stay overnight in Rutledge, Georgia. Twin Lakes is I love Twin Lakes because it's a special place in my heart. It's a camp full time for students who are not able-bodied, so with disabilities or who are ill. They may have cancer or they may have sickle cell, and so any money that's raised or used for renting it out goes directly to those students. So in our fifth grade going, we're also doing a service to students who normally can't afford to go to camp. And so that becomes kind of a double outdoor edge, a double message and purpose. And so,
I love that.
I'm hoping, I'm working on fourth grade, so I'm hoping to have some type of outdoor experience for each grade.
Yeah. I think it's just fantastic. Like you said, take advantage of this beautiful campus that we have. We have over 100 acres, which I don't think people realize how big it is. But it never fails when people are on campus for the first time. They're just stunned by how beautiful it is.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So,
and we're grateful to all the people who are like latching on and wanting to do. Sometimes we can't accept all of the help. I was offered a beehive one time, and I didn't know really. I grew up in New York. I'm a New York girl by heart. We don't really mess with beehives. So I didn't know what to do with that. Would have been great to have a working beehive on campus, but right now we're not.
We're just not able.
Yeah, we're not able.
Right now. Yes, exactly.
But hopefully would love a kind of an urban garden. Would love for our kids to be able to start doing a little gardening. We're kind of talking about that now. How could we have a little garden? So just incremental change, like little things that'll add to immensely to the program.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow. I think it's awesome. So we'll see. We'll have to have you back in 10 years and
see
where
what
the program is grown.
happens.
That's exactly right.
Our garden will be all a whole acre.
For real. Okay. So before we finish up, 2 questions I love to ask guests. All right. So I know you love to read.
Yes.
What is a book, one of your favorite books, or a book that has had the most impact on you?
Okay. I have a lot of books.
Yes. More than one is perfectly acceptable.
So my all-time favorite book is a book called Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston.
I have not read that.
You haven't? I think John Harkey
so much
teaches
about
it.
it.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And the reason why it's so impactful to me, because the first time I read it, it kind of was the story of my family, not exactly the story, but the book is written in vernacular, in a Black vernacular that I had never seen in print before.
Really?
And I remember being in a class and everyone having a hard time understanding it written, and I could totally understand it because I have family members who talk just like that. And I was like, oh my God, this is the first time I've seen people like me in this book talking this way, not even looking like me, but just talking like that. So I love that. I love that story. I love Zora Neale Hurston, her story too. So I love that book. And most recently, I have a book that I added to that. Miles, my son, is in when he was in 7th grade, he came home and he dropped this book on the table and said, hey, I think you would love this book. And it was Tuesdays with Morrie.
Yeah.
And, I had never read that book and I never knew it was a movie. I was telling everybody to read and they're like, it's a movie. And I'm like, it's a movie.
It's a movie. You know what? I don't know if I've seen it as a movie.
Yeah, it's a movie apparently. Okay. And so that book is full of so many statements and so much gratitude. It's kind of a sad story because he's dying, but his outlook on life and just being grateful for those moments with each other and with people and remembering all those who had an impact, it just sat with me in a way that I was like, why had I never read this book? Yeah. And I've recommended it to lots of people, which is silly because it's been out forever.
I know.
I'm like the last person to have read it. But
but it makes me want to go back and reread it because I loved it.
I underlined that book, and then it was just so special that you can't get teenage boys to pass a book on to you. So
exactly, to their mom.
Yeah, when he said read it, I was like, I need to read this book, and it just gave me a different perspective on how he views me, a happy one, Yeah. And so I love that book. Will forever have a little place in my heart. Yeah, that book.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I could probably name 5,000 other ones, but those are the two ones that sit with me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so now let's shift to advice. I'm sure you have had so much wisdom poured into you through the years, but what is a piece of advice that has stuck with you? That has been some of the best you've been given.
So my mom used to always talk about a quote, and I use it a lot. You've probably seen it. If you're standing strong, if you're standing tall, it's because you're standing on the backs of those who came before you. Make them proud. That's like a driving. I have it in various places. It just keeps me motivated through greatness and through adversity. It makes me think okay, there were people who worked really hard for you to be here and did some great things, so you can do it too. So that's one of them. And then my mom is kind of an old South Carolina lady. She has lots of sayings. And one of them, she used to always say, never want what others have because you never know what you're going to get. And when I was younger, I was like, what is she talking to? You always just think your mom's crazy. And then as I got older, I realized it means you might want something that someone has, but you might get more than you're bargaining for because you don't know what that person's life is like. You don't know. So it's more like be grateful for what you have. You can't always want what other people have because they may be dealing with some stuff that you're not even ready for. And so those two things, I say that to my kids all the time.
That's good.
You might want to be like somebody, but just be careful about what you are welcoming into your into your soul, right? Into your spirit. You want goodness into your spirit. And at church this Sunday, our pastor was talking about being helpful to people, but not taking on their spirit. Sometimes you always need to be helpful to people, even when they don't seem like you should help them.
Right.
That's something that I've added to my whole advice. You can help people, but you don't have to welcome their spirit. You can just help them knowing that you're in a spirit of helping. Right. I had to hear that this weekend, I think, and I was like, this is, how you sitting in there this is message is for me.
Just for me. Yeah.
That's what I felt. So those are 3 things that I think I would share.
That's awesome. Yeah. Good. All right. Well, before I let you go, one other thing I wanted you to share. Your son, is it Mason or Miles that's playing in the drumline?
Miles.
It's Miles. Okay. Is he loving that?
He loves it.
Oh,
he loves So he loves music, and we're developing our music program at Brookstone, and so it's been a highlight for him that he's been that drum line has been a great highlight for him, a great added addition.
They're phenomenal.
Yes.
It is so much fun.
I'm so
to watch
excited
them.
when I hear them. I want to stand up and
Yes,
dance, but I don't think
know.
anybody around me will do it with me.
I'll do it with you. I will do it with you. I love it. And I'm
Yes.
so grateful for them. And so you
Yes.
make sure he knows that what an addition it has been
Yes.
to this community.
Yes.
Like that people love hearing them.
I know. I
It's
keep
been
hearing
really
good things.
fun.
Yeah, it's been good for him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm so happy that, Mr. Stubbs has been like a great mentor for him.
Yeah.
Miles loves
Yeah.
music in all ways.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's been, he's been great.
Oh, that's so
just
good.
really been great. Yeah.
Because he plays more than one instrument.
He
Miles
plays
does,
the bass
doesn't he?
guitar,
Yes.
the piano, and the drums.
look at him.
Yes. Yeah. He's just musical. He's the kid. This is for parents who have this kid. It's okay. I'm going to say, I think all kids have gifts. And he's the kid that tapped his pencil in class all the time and drove everybody crazy. And so now I'm going to send this drumline video to all those teachers and say, hey, that tapping was intentional.
Yes,
There's some
I know.
purpose to that. And he's going to be okay.
More than okay.
He's going to be more than okay.
That's awesome.
I saw Kathleen Whitley, she used to work here and she taught Miles math. I saw her at the Distinguished Alumni and she said, I saw him in that drum line. I thought all that tapping in math class actually did something.
It's just practice.
It's just practice.
Yeah.
So yes. I'm excited. I'm really proud of him.
Yeah, I am too.
Absolutely
It's
proud of
really
him.
fun.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we love it.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, thank you so much for being here this morning.
course.
It's
Thank
just
you
a
for having
delight.
me.
And
Yeah.
we're so grateful for all the work you do in the lives of all of our children. And it's phenomenal.
Thank
So
you.
grateful to have
Thank
you as
I
a
love
colleague
being
and a
here.
friend.
Yes. It's been great.